Good afternoon. 2 pilots are dead and dozens of other people have been injured after an Air Canada plane crashed into a fire truck while landing at New York's LaGuardia airport.
The incident has shut down the airport for hours, impacting flights across eastern North America. CTV Sean Leathong has been following this story and joins us live with more from Pearson Airport. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, we know that more than a dozen flights leaving from Pearson this morning have been canceled, and a dozen more that were set to come in have been canceled. As we know, LaGuardia Airport is set to be closed until at least 2 o'clock today. But we'll take you back to last night when the collision happened. We know it happened just after 11:30 on runway 4. That was when the AC flight number 8646 collided into a fire truck at LaGuardia Airport. From what we understand, the plane was traveling, according to ABC News, somewhere in the ballpark of 150 kilometers per hour and colliding with that fire truck that was responding to a separate incident on a plane from, I believe it was Delta, that had aborted a takeoff earlier. So we know that the fire truck did have clearance to cross through the runway, the end result being 41 people taken to hospital, 9 of them remaining there in serious condition. And of course, the pilot and co-pilot from the Air Canada Jazz flight have, of course, been killed. We do have some audio from the air traffic controllers. Here's what they had to say.
Stop, truck 1. Stop. Stop, truck 1. Stop. Go 2603. Go around. Runway heading 2000. Jet 646. Jet 646. I see you collide with a vehicle here. Just hold position. I know you can't move. The vehicles are responding to you now.
Is the runway closed?
Del 2603. Go around. Runway heading 2000.
Heading 2000. Go around. Del 2603.
Tower.
Truck through 2. Runway 4 is closed, correct?
Yes. Go on to runway 4 now. Proceed on runway 4. You have access. Frontier 4195. I got the word that we're going to be closed for a little while. If you want to prepare to return to the ramp, let me know.
Yeah, we got stuff in progress for that, man. That wasn't good to watch.
Yeah, I know. I was here. I tried to reach out to my stuff, and we were dealing with an emergency earlier, and I messed up.
No, man, you did the best you could.
Now, you can hear the air traffic controllers, one of them saying that they messed up. Obviously, very difficult to hear knowing what the end result was. Like I said earlier, we've been told, or we've heard, that the plane was traveling in excess of 150 kilometers per hour on the runway, having just landed from Montreal. A little while after the crash, one of the local news stations actually caught up with some of the passengers who were on that plane. Here's what they had to say.
Fear. I mean, it was pretty shocking. I didn't know what to expect. We were honestly sleeping and then landing, and then all of a sudden, boom, woke up in shock, just didn't know what to do.
One of our friends was several rows back from us, and we walked past him on the way out because he was trying to find his glasses, and his nose was totally broken, bleeding on his face. A lot of people smacked their head against the seat in front of them.
We came in pretty hard. We immediately hit something, and it was just chaos in there. About 5 seconds later, we had come to a stop, but in that short period, I mean, everybody was hunkered down and everybody was screaming. Pretty quickly, we didn't have any directions because the pilot's cabin had been kind of destroyed, so somebody said, let's get the emergency exit and get the door in, let's all jump out, and that's exactly what we did.
So LaGuardia remains closed at this time, obviously affecting flights. We know that the National Transportation Safety Board in the United States is investigating, and that Canada is sending an investigations team from the Transportation Safety Board to help in any way possible. As mentioned here, we have as many as 14 flights that were destined to leave this morning that have been canceled at this point, and we know that as many as 14 or 15 flights that were destined to arrive here at Pearson have been canceled. At this point, it says that flights that are leaving after 2 o'clock are scheduled to depart as usual, but people are being urged to check their travel times, check their flights, but that because of this investigation, that could, of course, change at any time. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board has taken over the investigation into the incident. Aviation expert John Cox offered his thoughts on how this investigation should unfold.
They're going to look at the workload, how long that controller had been on duty, his past history, and then they're going to listen very carefully to the air traffic control tapes, listening as well as the aircraft. They've got the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder from the aircraft. So they're going to listen to all of this to gather information to build a complete understanding of what happened and what each individual understood as far as the clearances to cross the runway were.
Prime Minister Mark Carney released a statement following the crash. It reads, the collision involving an Air Canada Express aircraft last night in New York that claimed the lives of the pilot and co-pilot and injured dozens more is deeply saddening. Canadian officials are working closely with their U.S. counterparts on the ground as the investigation continues. My thoughts are with the victims, their families, and all those impacted.
Police are searching for 3 suspects following a shooting in North York. What happened just before 10 last night near Jane and Shepherd. The victim was taken to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. Police say 3 suspects were spotted running from the scene, but they've not provided any descriptions. Investigators are asking anyone with information to come forward.
Peel Police are set to announce the results of Project Stratus later this afternoon. This investigation, led by Peel Police, has resulted in the arrest of several suspects in connection with violent carjackings, as well as a criminal network trafficking stolen high-end vehicles to be sold outside Canada. Investigators will be providing more details at a news conference at Peel Police headquarters around 1 p.m.
A high school in Flemington Park was evacuated this morning following a threat. Police were called to Mark Garneau Collegiate near Don Mills and Overley Boulevard just shortly after 8 a.m. Students have since been allowed to return to the school as police have determined the threat to be unfounded. They've not given any other details.
A 16-year-old boy is in hospital after being struck by a vehicle in Mississauga. Peel paramedics called to the area of the QEW in Huron, Ontario shortly after 8 a.m. for reports of someone being struck by a vehicle. The victim was taken to a trauma center in serious condition. So far, there's been no details provided about the driver involved.
With kids back in school following March break, Toronto police have launched a school zone safety campaign.
Our parking enforcement officers want to ensure that motorists are not creating any unnecessary risk with the children and pedestrians returning back to school. Now, we are urging motorists to slow down, give yourself plenty of time for pickups and drop-offs, and always prioritize safety over convenience.
The week-long initiative is focused on improving safety in school zones. Police will be on the lookout for drivers who park illegally near schools. They'll also be paying special attention to no stopping and no parking zones, crosswalks, and school bus loading areas. The campaign runs through Friday.
Drivers are continuing to feel the pain at the pumps in the GTA as the war in the Middle East continues. Gas prices rose 6 cents on Sunday, meaning drivers across the GTA are paying an average of roughly $1.78 a litre for regular at most stations. That's the highest price for gas in nearly 2 years. Still to come, the latest on the situation on the ground in the Middle East. We'll have more on the ongoing talks between Tehran and Washington a little later in the newscast. But first, MPPs are back at Queen's Park today for the first time since December, and the spring session is expected to be busy.
The Ford government will be tabling its budget on Thursday and is facing criticism over a bill to restrict freedom of information access. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris has the details.
The Premier began his day away from the legislature with a view of Toronto's skyline, announcing his government will declare the city's island airport a special economic zone, a designation that allows environmental and other laws to be suspended.
It's an airport for the people of Canada and Ontario. That's the difference. That's why we're taking it over.
The idea is to allow jets to take off from Billy Bishop in a few years. There's been resistance at City Hall. The province is pushing them out of the deal that governs the airport.
We always focus on environmental issues and we're going to be working with the First Nations community. We take all that into consideration, but we can't just sit back.
In the legislative chamber, for the first time in 102 days, the opposition calls the airport and a flurry of other recent announcements a distraction, pulling attention from an overhaul of freedom of information laws that will put the Premier's cell phone records out of reach.
So I would ask the Premier to explain why is his government taking away the people's right to see how decisions are made and who is benefiting.
Doug Ford's been clear his cell phone is the reason for this change, but maintains Ontario is just getting in line with Ottawa.
There's two groups that are concerned about it. It's the opposition that they should talk to their federal partners and the media. Everyone else is focused on something else.
Liberals say the government record on those other things is less than stellar.
Class sizes keep going up. Unemployment, up. All-way health care, up. People without a family doctor, up. Electricity and heating costs up.
Just before question period, the NDP tried to bring a motion to the floor to reverse recent changes to OSAP. That move was blocked. A major student protest is planned here tomorrow. At Queen's Park, Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
Demonstrators have gathered outside Queen's Park this afternoon to express their concern about the Ford government taking over several Ontario school boards.
The Ontario Autism Coalition is one of the leaders of the protest, saying the changes have worsened a lack of funding for autism-related programs. Our Mike Walker is live outside Queen's Park and joins us live with more. Mike.
Well, Michelle, about 150 people, including advocates, trustees, parents, union leaders, have gathered on the front lawn of here at Queen's Park for this protest, as you mentioned, which is organized by the Ontario Autism Coalition. I'm going to give you a live look of the protest right now. They are speaking out against legislation that gives the Ontario government the authority to take over school boards, a move they argue erodes democracy, sidelines trustees, and silences the voices of parents and advocates. Now, the Ontario government passed the legislation, Bill 33, in the fall, allowing it to appoint a supervisor to school boards over concerns of financial mismanagement, infighting. So far, 8 school boards in Ontario have been taken over. That includes the Toronto Catholic and Public boards. Here's more from protesters.
We also have chronic underfunding of special education. And now we have Bill 33 happening, where we don't have trustees to turn to anymore when we have problems at the school level with our children. This is a huge problem. We did a survey last year, and 28% of the people who responded to our special education survey said that their student needed the help of a trustee for advocacy to resolve some issue with their education access or their accommodations access.
It's very hard as a parent to get any movement within the system as it is. The trustee was someone I turned to immediately when they cut a lot of our support at school a few years ago, and without them, there's really nowhere to go.
Now, advocates here are calling for Bill 33 to be repealed and for trustees to be reinstated, as well as to increase funding for schools, especially special education. On the Bill 33 front, the government has stated that it is necessary in order to hold school boards accountable and uphold public trust. The education minister said that will remain in place. It's takeovers of school boards for as long as it's deemed necessary. Reporting live outside Queen's Park, I'm Mike Walker. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. More news in a moment, but let's turn our attention to the weather forecast, and you can see some flurries there at Queen's Park. The MPPs are back. The kids are back in school from March break, and yes, it's spring, but we still have signs of winter lingering. Let's bring in our Lindsay Morrison for all the details. Hopefully nothing substantial.
No, you know what? This may look a little worse on the radar, Michelle, than it is in real life, which is good news, because I think many are finished with the accumulating snow. I could be wrong, but we're not expecting this to amount to a whole lot, although we are seeing pretty widespread flurries this hour around the GTA. Expect this for the early part of the afternoon before conditions improve into the evening. Winds are coming out of the north right now, fairly light, sustained around 15 kilometers per hour. We're at +1 right now at Pearson Airport. We are expecting to make it to a daytime high of about 3 degrees, but even that is colder than normal. We should be reaching highs closer to about 7 degrees this time of year. Coming up, we'll take you through the forecast for the week ahead. We've got a couple of nice days to look forward to, and then a bit of a temperature roller coaster as well. So all of that is ahead. For now, Michelle, back to you.
Well, speaking of that temperature roller coaster, Lindsay, the city is activating 5 warming centers due to the cold temperatures expected tonight. The 5 sites open at 5 p.m. and the city says walk-ins are welcome. Warming centers offer vulnerable residents a place to rest, have a meal, and get referrals to emergency shelters.
Israel's launched new attacks on Tehran as the war in the Middle East rages on. Israel says it's begun a wide-scale wave of strikes on infrastructure targets in Tehran, but did not give details. Explosions have been heard in several locations in the Iranian capital. Meanwhile, Israel has destroyed the main bridge in southern Lebanon, with the IDF warning of several more weeks of fighting ahead. Israel's military also approved plans to expand attacks against Hezbollah in Lebanon, raising concerns about a large-scale ground invasion. Israel has intensified its campaign against Hezbollah after the group fired rockets into Israel earlier this month. Since then, more than 1,000 people have been killed by Israeli strikes on Lebanon, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry.
U.S. President Donald Trump has extended his deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. This morning, Trump stated the U.S. will hold off on bombing Iranian power plants for 5 days. In a social media post, Trump says the U.S. and Iran have had productive conversations about a resolution to the war in the Middle East. Over the weekend, Iran warned it would completely close the Strait of Hormuz, which is used to ship roughly a fifth of the global oil supply. Iran also stated it would attack infrastructure used by American and Israeli allies if the U.S. followed through on its plan to bomb Iran's power plants. Despite Trump's remarks, Iranian state media say Iran's foreign ministry denies that any negotiations have taken place with the U.S.
When it comes to the Strait, what we need to do is to work together. These 22 nations, again, most of them from NATO, but also the other ones I mentioned, to work through what is needed, when is it needed, and how we will make this together as soon as the time is right to get this done.
NATO's Secretary General says he is convinced the alliance will be able to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Mark Rutte also responded to Trump's criticism of NATO. He says the secret nature of the military operation requires NATO countries to take time to make their response.
And tensions over the Strait of Hormuz had oil trading at more than $100 U.S. a barrel, though it has since eased, with West Texas Intermediary crude now trading at just over $91. However, the price at the pump has spiked again in most provinces. British Columbia continues to have the most expensive gas at just under $1.94 per liter on average. Alberta has the cheapest gas, selling for more than $1.55 a liter. And the rising cost of oil is also sending the price of jet fuel soaring, creating issues for both airlines and passengers.
One major air carrier has already slashed flights. CTV's Josh Morano has those details.
At the Ottawa International Airport, many are still traveling, even as costs in the airline industry rise.
We booked it a couple of weeks ago. We did most of it on points, but it was still pricey.
Tom Ertl is flying home to Fredericton and says booking closer to his trip came at a cost.
We don't do this leg often enough to really compare, but just generally flying is not for the faint of heart or for those with don't have deep pockets.
Others, however, say they're not seeing a big jump in ticket prices despite rising fuel costs, at least not yet.
Probably a concern, but we don't fly very often. We didn't really know what to expect, but it was fine, so we booked it.
Airlines, meantime, are adjusting. United Airlines announcing it's cutting 5% of scheduled flights through 2027 as higher fuel prices tied to ongoing tensions in the Middle East continue to drive up costs.
I booked that about 2 months back, this specific flight. But, with the situation currently in the Middle East specifically, it takes several iterations to finally decide on a timing.
With the price of jet fuel hovering around $175 U.S. a barrel, there is some concern other airlines could soon follow suit. But for Ertl, that's not a concern, at least not right now.
It doesn't trouble me all that much. I've got lots of flexibility. I think the slashing of services and leg space and niggling little fees here and there for things, that's more of annoyance to me.
Josh Morano, CTV News, Ottawa.
Quebec's controversial secularism law is before the Supreme Court today. The Supreme Court has set aside 4 days of hearings on Bill 21. The legislation, adopted in 2019, prevents public sector workers from wearing religious symbols in the workplace. The court will hear arguments about the legislation and the preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause by Quebec's government to shield it from charter challenges. CTV's Judy Trin has been following the proceedings, and she joins us live now from the Supreme Court in Ottawa. Judy, let's first talk about what's at stake with the potential ruling in this case.
Michelle, the Supreme Court justices will have to decide if Bill 21, as it was passed by the Quebec government, was or is constitutional. That is the main crux of the arguments that they will be looking at, but also, as you mentioned, the use of the notwithstanding clause. The question being asked is, was the Quebec government aware that it could be discriminatory, and that's why it placed into the actual legislation that clause? I want to give you a sense of what's going on inside this this grand courthouse right now in the Supreme Court, you'll see more than 100 people in the overflow room area watching the proceedings inside the top court in the country. They are basically glued to the screen because, as you can see, it impacts their rights. We know that there have been 13 intervener groups, among them the World Sikh Organization, as well as the National Council of Canadian Muslims. We understand from what we've heard inside the courtroom that in terms of who's been most affected, it has been Muslim women. Please take a listen to Stephen Brown of the NCCM.
The decision that the Supreme Court justices will render on Bill 21 will in large part determine whether Canada continues to be a liberal democracy that is the envy of the world or something less, something that we cannot afford to accept.
So the question is of a legal matter, but ethical and moral considerations are also in front of the Supreme Court. Well, the question they're going to have to answer is, can elected officials knowingly enact policy that deprive identifiable groups of their rights? Michelle.
Judy, and as this process plays out, what could the consequences be depending on the ruling?
Since the notwithstanding clause was put in place during 1982 within the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it was meant to be a sort of a nuclear option, an option of last resort, but it has been used much more frequently. We see it in this case being used for the first time as a preemptive measure to pass legislation. But we also know, Michelle, that Alberta has used the notwithstanding clause to push forward legislation to stop teacher strikes, as well as to push through laws involving transgender children in schools. So what we know also in Ontario is that the Ford government wants to use the notwithstanding clause. It has said that it's considering it. So this determination will determine the limits by which provinces can use that clause to push forward their legislation. Michelle.
CTV's Judy Tran live from Canada's Supreme Court. Appreciate it.
In Ottawa, a new session of the House of Commons begins today following the March break. The government's expected to face questions on a number of issues. Canada's Auditor General has tabled 3 new reports. They focus on international student program reforms, RCMP recruiting, and transformation of the federal public service pay system. The opposition is also likely to seek clarity on any Canadian role in the ongoing conflict in Iran. Ottawa says it's looking at helping Gulf nations and might contribute to efforts to unblock fuel shipments. Meanwhile, the Liberals' choice to be the next parliamentary budget officer has to be approved by the Commons and the Senate.
A Canadian dream of space exploration has been brought back to Earth after the country's space agency canceled a mission to put a rover on the moon.
CTV's Garrett Berry has more on what led to the decision.
For dreamers young,
going into space and discovering stuff.
To see what it's like to be on it.
And older,
the moon is the moon is important. The moon's a big resource.
There's something about a space mission that simply excites.
We're in a full universe, and we can't be really the only thing that's alive out there.
But when hope hits fiscal reality,
horrible housing market, horrible job market, goods are getting way too expensive.
Each year it just gets more and more expensive.
Tough decisions are sure to follow. So the Canadian Space Agency has now canned its plan to send a first ever Canadian-built rover to the moon's south pole, part of cost-cutting measures estimated to save $33 million over the next 3 years. The rover would have searched for ice on the moon's surface as part of a 14-day mission in the same area where NASA hopes to send astronauts aboard Artemis 4 in a few years' time.
This was going to be really exciting, and it's sad that it's going away. On the other hand, I'm wary of the fact that science and scientists have to walk a line with the public.
Because as Ottawa is pulling back here, it is spending on space exploration elsewhere. $200 million was promised last week to lease a space launch pad in Nova Scotia for 10 years. Riskin says it's become important to show that researchers are spending wisely and prudently as the economy sputters.
The people are having trouble paying for gas and paying for groceries. I think it's really important for the Canadian space science community to meet that moment.
He said it's a matter of credibility, and this next generation of Canadians agree.
We got pretty far. There is some we didn't explore, but we could hold off for a bit.
I feel like spending the money back at home would be more beneficial because we don't know our own planet well enough.
Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
Well, we've got flurries out there, and if that's not enough for you, it also feels colder than average today. We talk about the seasonal norm a lot. That's based on averages for temperatures this time of year, and we do expect to be closer to around 7 degrees at this point in the month of March, but today we'll be closer to 3. Here's a look at the almanac. Worth pointing out, the cold spot of the province so far is Moosonee, which is not as far north in Ontario as it could be, at minus 30 degrees today. So still feeling like winter in many areas. Overnight tonight, we dropped to a low near minus 6, but it is going to feel like minus 8. Going forward, we do see double-digit temperatures on the plus side at one point this week. We'll show you when after the break.
All right, to the forecast. As March breaks over, the kids are back in school. It doesn't feel like spring yet, but we're getting there.
I don't think people expect, it's spring, it'll be glorious. We're used to this, although it would be nice. We haven't had, when's the last time we had sunshine? I mean, you would know specifically, but it feels like it's been, I mean, it definitely was a gray March break if you stayed in Ontario. I'm sure some people had some sun.
Yes. I've lost track of what day we had sun here in southern Ontario, so I think that tells us something.
Yeah.
You're right on the money. It's a bit of a snow globe outside there right now, which is pretty to look out outside your window. But if you're venturing out today, maybe throw on that slightly warmer jacket because we are cooler than normal and certainly will be through the night tonight. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. And speaking of snow, I want to take you to Montreal. This was just yesterday when the St. Patrick's Day parade was taking place. And yeah, I don't think it's every year that it's snowing quite this heavily for this parade. Look at these guys. Way to go. Yeah, if you thought it was spring, well, it doesn't always look and feel like it at this point in the season. We've got many weeks of the season to go. So let's see how quickly we can get to feeling a little bit more like what some expect, or at least hopeful at this time of year. Here's the satellite and radar. Widespread flurries. We widen things out to show you that this disturbance not going to be with us for too long. There is another low that's going to swing through. This one's going to impact us midweek, and before that arrives, we enjoy a pretty nice day for tomorrow. Even late this afternoon, we hope to have some clearing, perhaps some sun before that sun sets. And again, any flurries today not really expected to amount to a whole lot on the ground. There's tomorrow morning, starting off with sun. It does look like we will get an increase in cloud cover midday. Chance of flurries in some areas for your Tuesday night. And then Wednesday, especially as we make our way into the nighttime hours, we see the possibility of some showers. It looks to be unsettled into Thursday as well, with periods of rain that day. But wait until you see Thursday's forecast daytime high. Now, I just wanted to show you a snapshot of the temperature story from northern Canada to the southern United States. Last week, parts of the southern U.S. had a major heat wave. Today, in southern Ontario, we are above freezing in places like Windsor, Toronto, Trenton. You're at 3 degrees right now. However, below freezing in places like Wyerton, Muskoka, and Ottawa right now. Here's tonight's expected low, minus 6 degrees, wind chill minus 8, but it's going to feel into the minus double digits in many areas too. There's that sun that we are waiting for, mix of sun and cloud for your Tuesday afternoon, and temperatures a little closer to seasonal just about everywhere. We will take 5 degrees, even though our norm here in Toronto is 7. 7-day forecast. Look at Thursday, up around 12 degrees for a high. Again, we are expecting some periods of rain that day, and then we cool right back down. Friday brings us some sunshine, but also a daytime high of only +1. That's the weather for now. Nathan, I'll send it over to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. The Raptors will be looking to bounce back when they take on an undermanned Utah Jazz team tonight.
Good job by Scotty. Lead pass RJ. RJ goes right to
the rim on the attack.
The team's coming off a 120-98 loss to the Phoenix Suns last night. Tip-off for tonight's game against the Jazz is set for just after 9 Eastern in Salt Lake City. The Raptors are currently in 5th place in the Eastern Conference. Most of Utah's starters are out with injuries.
The Blue Jays have announced contract extensions for both their manager and general manager. The team has agreed to a 2-year contract extension with manager John Schneider, which will run through the end of the 2028 season. Since taking over in 2022, Schneider has won 303 games as the Jays manager, the 4th highest total in the club's history. Meanwhile, the team has also agreed to a 5-year contract extension with general manager Ross Atkins. That deal runs through the end of the 2031 season. During Atkins' tenure as GM, the Jays have made the playoffs 5 times, including appearing in the World Series for the first time in 32 years.
Still to come, new research suggests the notifications you get on your phone are having an impact on your brain. We'll have the details when we come back. We've all been there. You're working on a task or in a meeting when your cell phone pings with a message. You glance at it, but then you get right back to what you were doing.
New research is showing those interruptions make you measurably less smart for 7 seconds. And for more on that, we are joined by Dan Riskin. Dan, that's very specific, 7 seconds. How did researchers find this out?
That's my favorite thing about this study is that, like, there's this number, and it doesn't vary. So you would think that some distractions are bigger than others, and they would last longer, but that's not what they found in this study. They had a whole bunch of undergrads doing this task where they had to, it was a cognitively difficult task, almost like a boring video game, but it's hard to do. And then they had messages come up. Sometimes it was a message that was from your own phone. Sometimes it was somebody else's phone. Sometimes it was blurred out, so you didn't even know what it was, but it just pinged you. And no matter what it was, 7 seconds would seem to be the amount of time that their performance was decreased before it came back up. But the difference was how much worse you got over those 7 seconds. So you get dumber every time. It's just how dumb you get depends on the message. So if it's a little thing like, you have a like on your Instagram, that might bring you down 5–10%. But if it's a message that totally distracts you, then you become, measurably like somewhere in the order of 25% worse for those 7 seconds. And so I just think about this in terms of, like, if I'm trying to really, like, read something or get something done, or I'm on a deadline and I have my phone and it's just pinging me, well, over time, those little alerts start to add up. And so maybe I should just leave the phone, until I'm finished the task and then see what I missed.
Good, or turn off the notifications.
Put that phone away. It's pretty clear. Might as well get rid of it.
I know, but, especially in your line of work, right? You've got to constantly be on alert in case something changes. You feel like you need to be there all the time, but inevitably, 99% of the messages that come really are just a waste of time. So it's tough to figure that out.
All right, another one now. This is a psychological quirk. We might be more inclined to like an individual as opposed to a group of people. Why is that?
Yeah, so this is really interesting. Let's say, I'm dreading going to the art gallery because it's always so crowded, and so I can't stand the people at the art gallery. They're always in my way. They're always, they're talking too loudly. But then when you meet an individual person at the art gallery, they're great. And so why don't we make this connection that, like, the individuals are fine, so why do we just have this way of thinking about groups? And everybody's got the different group that sort of bugs them. And this psychology paper comes out with an explanation, which is that we really don't like the feeling of underestimating a person, of thinking the worst of somebody and then finding out they were actually really good, because it makes us feel bad about ourselves. And when you're thinking about an individual, you give them the benefit of the doubt to prevent that. But when you're thinking about a group, you'll never have that moment where the whole group proves you wrong. So you can go on just not liking the group, and you'll always be able to do that and never be proven wrong. And so this psychological quirk helps explain why we might not like people, but we like a person. And it also might have, some interesting information for how the evolution of humans went.
Interesting.
Okay, this last study, I think, is going to make hoarders rejoice, or maybe people who just love to keep things. There's math that suggests that old clothes will really become stylish again if you wait long enough.
If you wait long enough. The magic number that comes out of the study is 20 years. So
20 years.
20 years is a long time to hold on to a dress. But if you do it, this study says that it'll come back. So what they did is they looked at 38,000 garments from fashion magazines throughout the 20th and 21st century. And they could measure using, the smart computer algorithms, how long the dress was from the eyeballs, measuring to the ankles, where does the dress end. What about the neckline? What about the waist? How high is it? How low is it? And lo and behold, these 20-year cycles in these things. So, you know, a mini skirt was great in the 60s, terrible in the 70s, great in the 80s again, and so on. And this 20-year cycle repeats. But what changes over time is the variance. So in the 40s and 50s, everybody had very similar dresses. If you look through those fashion magazines, everything looks almost the same. But today, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. The average is still doing the same thing, but there are a lot more people way outside the average. So I just find it interesting that we're getting fashion advice from mathematicians, because that is not what mathematicians are known for.
Aren't they known for that?
Yeah, they're known for dressing in a way, but not maybe it'll come back in style. Who knows?
Because that was fine over time. They'll bring it back, but they'll make a little adjustment to force you to buy the new one.
Yeah, that's the trick. But, you know, let's hold on to our suits and see if we can beat the crowd.
Okay,
all right, CTV Science and Tech Specialist Dan Riskin. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, with weather news now, thousands of elderly Canadians are waiting for a long-term care bed, with provinces turning to a mix of public and private facilities to create new spaces.
However, that approach is raising concerns, with critics pointing to lower quality care at some private operations. CTV's Maria Saru reports.
In their 28 years of dairy farming, the Howes have had several cows require a cesarean section, sometimes in the middle of the night. And they knew a large animal veterinarian awake and ready for their call.
These aren't just veterinarians to us, like we've become friends with them. They know our herds. They know us.
The veterinarians she's referring to are employed by the provincial government, specialized in large animal medicine and stationed across New Brunswick. Only Newfoundland and Labrador have a similar service. The rest of the country has private vets. And while farmers pay for each visit, it still costs the province about $4 million a year.
You've struck a devastating blow to the heart of New Brunswick's agriculture community.
New Brunswick recently revealed a historic $1.4 billion deficit in its budget, claiming cuts are necessary to combat it. On the chopping block, the Provincial Veterinary Service.
We called and they basically said, what do you want us to do? And I said, I want you to come save Betty's life. And they were here, I think, 45 minutes.
Betty, the sheep, was saved that day, just weeks after Tim Clancy moved his animal sanctuary from Ontario to New Brunswick. He had only ever worked with private veterinarians, some, he says, who never showed up when called. Clancy is adamant he'd pay more if it means saving the service.
I mean, I think most of us would probably say that's better than no coverage at all.
But commercial farms make up less than a third of the calls to the provincial vets, says the agriculture minister. The rest are hobby or horse farms. The plan is to see the service phased out over 3 years and taken over by the private sector.
Healthcare is important for everybody in New Brunswick, even for our animals.
And farmers worry it won't be the same. Laura Brown, CTV News, Burton, New Brunswick.
Still to come, layoffs are happening today at Algoma Steel in Sault Ste. Marie. We'll have those details when we come back.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
A round of layoffs is happening today at Algoma Steel in Sault Ste. Marie. Last year, the steelmaker announced it would be cutting 1,000 jobs. That came shortly after the U.S. announced it would be placing a 50% tariff on Canadian steel imports. Some of the workers will be laid off today, but not all of them. At one point, Algoma Steel had a workforce of roughly 2,700, making it one of the largest employers in Northern Ontario. Police across the country are trying to catch them all, thieves stealing thousands of dollars worth of Pokemon cards.
The collectibles have become a popular target for criminals, impacting the livelihoods of many small businesses. CTV's Andrew Johnson reports.
Even at $1 a card, that's a pretty solid value.
Business is brisk at Jesse Guyon's new Westminster, BC collectibles shop, but the bartering is taking place behind bars after what happened in January.
Even watching it back now is just infuriating.
Watching this, 4 hooded thieves bashing their way into his store and making off with as many Pokemon cards as they could carry.
In a matter of a few minutes, they left with 20 grand worth of stuff. It's devastating, as a small business owner especially.
Guyon is unfortunately not alone. Thieves used a car to bust their way into an Abbotsford shop, leaving 2.5 minutes later with $30,000 in product, mostly Pokemon. A few days later, this was the scene in Burnaby after a 2:30 a.m. smash job, the third break-in here in 6 months.
You work really hard to, bring your dream to life, but then, hear people trying to take away your livelihood.
Stores have also been hit from Halifax to Toronto. In New York, armed thieves went in during the day, part of a Pokemon problem coinciding with a post-COVID popularity boom and soaring card values.
$3,400 is about market price of what this card goes for.
Police say once stolen, they're easy to sell and hard for investigators to find.
Very difficult to track that type of merchandise. You know, certainly more difficult than something traditional like, say, electronics.
Police are recommending small business owners running a shop like this reach out and have officers come by to sweep the store and make some recommendations to increase security, even on a budget.
Something as simple as increased lighting, trimming back hedges.
This goes across like the whole frame of the shop.
Besides the bars, Jesse Guions also added 24/7 security surveillance at his store.
We're definitely pretty confident now.
And able to focus on the collectibles that are his passion. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, New Westminster, BC.
A new report suggests Canadians are paying more to stream their favorite series. The annual Couch Potato report estimates the 10 leading streamers increased their prices by an average of 7% last year. Despite that, consumers are continuing to pivot from traditional cable and satellite TV packages to streaming services. However, the streamers themselves are also pushing their subscribers towards plans that include ads.
Coming up, processing life as an engineer. Montreal's Concordia University is giving girls hands-on experience in an effort to inspire them to enter STEM fields.
Montreal's Concordia University is working to inspire the next generation of women in STEM fields.
This weekend, a group of high schoolers got a chance to process life as an engineer. CTV's Sweet Arasi reports.
It's a combination of two.
These teenage girls are thinking like engineers, working on circuit boards and using their problem-solving skills, and following in the footsteps of the women before them.
During this workshop, we learned that during World War II, men had to go to war, so then women were the ones who were making circuits and stuff like that.
STEM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, is still a male-dominated field. But 17-year-old Sarah Jane Bonfin says that doesn't intimidate her.
But it gives me a bit more of a courage, as in to prove them wrong and show them that it's not just for men, and I'm going to show you that I can really excel in this field.
16-year-old Jerry Eunice agrees.
Okay, there's more male in this field, but it also started with women. So if you can do it, I can also do it. So yeah.
And that's exactly why Women in Engineering at Concordia University is holding this event. The student-run organization is giving girls aged 12 to 17 a front row seat to STEM, hoping to spark their interest. Elisa Moscato, who is a member of the group, has first-hand experience.
I'm in mechanical engineering, and depending on the classes, sometimes we're like 5 girls out of a class of 100 students.
Most of the workshops are run by university students who not too long ago were in high school, trying to figure out their career path.
Because they're younger, so they can definitely relate to us more, and also they're going through the program, so they can definitely explain how it is.
For 15-year-old Isabella Spagnuolo, the message is simple.
If you believe you can do it, and if you have the talent to do it, then go for it.
No matter who you are. Sweet Arasi, CTV News.
Great program. All right, so March break, I was pretty much here for the week doing my thing, but you were gone. I'm sure you had a good time. How was it?
I have a trio of kids on March break. It was great. We did Ottawa. We skied. My grandmother, my baka, I know she's watching, turned 90. So great family time, and it just breezes by. Now we're into is it the final week of March? Is the final stretch?
It really is. And the first full week of spring, if we're looking on the positive side. First of all, happy birthday to Baka, right?
Yes.
And as we take a look at what we can expect the rest of the day today, we've got some bursts of snow that are happening out there. Flurries, not a lot of measurable snow in many areas. In fact, we're going to clear out from north to south as the afternoon goes on. Going to jump ahead to tomorrow here. So this is what we're waking up to temperature-wise. These kinds of temperatures are not really what we expect to experience at this point in the month of March. We do still anticipate that we will get little cold spurts here and there, but tomorrow we do rebound quite nicely. So we go from around -6 degrees to about +5. Average daytime high this time of year is 7 degrees. We also look to enjoy a mix of sun and cloud for at least part of the day before that cloud cover increases. Wednesday, similar temperature, more in the way of cloud, and then some showers at night. Thursday is looking to be a bit of an unsettled day, periods of rain. Look at the temperature, though. We shoot up to about 12 degrees for a high. That's just not going to last, unfortunately. We do fall back below freezing at night, and then we're going to struggle to make it past the freezing mark on Friday, but at least we will have some sunshine that day, and overall next weekend's not looking too bad at this point.
Yeah,
Michelle
not
and
too
Nathan.
bad at all. Thank you, Lindsay. And that's it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and the whole team here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé.
And I'm Nathan Down. And be sure to join us later for CTV News at 5 and 6.